I work for a small printing company outside the city. The office is 3 stories tall, in an older building, but still operational. Because I'm a layout worker, sometimes the work piles up and I have to work overtime. Usually, I only work until 10 p.m. But that night, I was alone, staying until past midnight. That building at night is very quiet. There is no other sound apart from the fan, and the printer occasionally turns on due to auto maintenance. Around 12:30 at night, I went down to the first floor to get water from the dispenser. As I passed through the front lobby, I saw the security guard standing still, facing the window. His face couldn't be seen, he was standing with his back to me. I simply said, "Good evening, sir." No response. But I thought maybe he was wearing a headset or just distracted. I got some water, went back to the second floor, and continued working. But about 10 minutes later, I got a WhatsApp notification from the office group. It was from the head of security. Information: the security guard is absent tonight, so the office will be unattended. All staff are advised to be vigilant if working overtime. I immediately fell silent. Who was that standing in front of the window? I went down slowly to the first floor. There's no one. But the position of the carpet in front of the door shifted. And the front door wasn't locked. Even though I was pretty sure the automatic lock sounded when I arrived. I tried to ignore it. Go up to the second floor, take your things, intend to go home. When I opened the door to the room, there were wet handprints on my table. It's like having touched the surface of the table with your hand, which is cold and dry. But his palms are small. Not adult size. I immediately left. I hurried downstairs. As I reached the first floor stairs, the lights in the hallway suddenly went out. It was pitch black. And at the end of the hallway, I heard the sound of small footsteps. Then an old man's voice, very softly. "Don't leave me alone, okay?" After the voice came from the end of the hallway, I paused, holding my breath. The small footsteps grew closer. They weren't running, but very slowly, like a child walking with their head down. I turned around and immediately ran out of the office. The front door was still open, and I didn't care about the things inside. The important thing is, I'm out. I was riding a motorbike while shaking. Don't dare look in the rearview mirror. Because, for some reason, I felt like someone was sitting in the back seat. Not his weight. But it felt cold, something I've never felt before. The next day, I reported it to the manager. He remained silent, then pulled a folder out of a drawer. It contained reports of staff experiencing strange incidents. But it was never discussed. Because management didn't want to create scary rumors, they used the excuse that the work wasn't getting done. One story comes from a marketing staff member. I was working overtime alone on the third floor. When I came down, I saw a security guard standing on the stairs. But his clothes were dirty, and his face couldn't be seen because it was dark. When I greeted him, he nodded slowly, but didn't say anything. The next day, I asked Mr. Anwar, and he said he was sick last night and didn't come in. The strange thing is, this incident was written in 2017. So it's been a while. And one more thing. That afternoon, I saw a small child run into the women's restroom on the second floor. I waited for her to come out, but no one was inside. The CCTV couldn't be checked. It said there was an error at that time. I started to inquire with the housekeeping clerk, who had worked there since the building's inception. His name was Mr. David. He was almost 60 years old. I asked, "Sir, what was this office used to be?" He was silent for a moment, continuing to whisper. Before it was an office, it was a funeral home. Many bodies stayed there before being buried. Sometimes, not everyone comes home. I can only swallow my saliva. The next night, even though I didn't work overtime, I took on extra work in the living room on the second floor. It was busy, with 4 other people there too. But when everyone left at 10 p.m., it was just me and one girl from the design team, Tia. Tia went to the restroom for a moment. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. She didn't come back. I walked to the hallway in front of the women's restroom. There was no sound. I called out, "Tia." No answer. When I looked through the gap in the downstairs restroom door, there were 2 shadowy feet standing inside. I said, "Tia, what's wrong with you?" But the sound that came out, not a girl's voice, not a human voice. "You just left me." Suddenly, the toilet door slammed by itself, and Tia appeared from behind me. "Oh, what were you doing staring there?" "I went to the 3rd floor earlier, not to the toilet." I immediately looked into the toilet again. Empty. There's no one. After what happened with Tia, I decided not to work overtime anymore. But work is getting busier, and my team is short of people. Finally, a week later, I was asked to handle the layout revision project alone. Deadline, tomorrow morning. So like it or not, I'm working overtime again. I stayed on the 2nd floor. I brought a headset so I wouldn't be too distracted by the sounds around me. But around 10:45 p.m., the power suddenly went out, only on my floor. The lights and AC went out, but my computer remained on. That didn't make sense. Because my computer doesn't have a UPS. I unplugged my headset. It was quiet. No printer noise, no fan noise. But I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. Slow, heavy steps, like old boots. And with each step down, the wooden floorboards creaked. I immediately turned off the monitor. Silence. No one was working overtime that night. The 3rd floor was completely dark, having been locked beforehand. The footsteps stopped right on the 2nd floor. I hid behind a file cabinet. I peeked into the hallway and saw the silhouette of a very tall man standing at the end of the hallway. He was standing with his back to me. His clothes looked like a security guard's, but at the neck, there was no head. I'm holding my breath. But suddenly he walked fast, not running, but fast like a slide, into the meeting room. I immediately ran away via the back stairs. Go down to the 1st floor. But didn't come out straight away. Because when I got downstairs, I saw something from the front office window. There was a small child standing inside the reception area. He was wearing a long white shirt, and his hands were covering his face. I walked slowly to the exit. My hand was already on the doorknob. But a voice from behind made me stop. "I know you can see me." I immediately opened the door and ran away. The next day, I report again. But this time, the manager replied with something that made me even more horrified. He gave me a photocopy of the security attendance from 2014. There is the name of a security guard, Mr. Samuel. I asked, why indeed? The manager said quietly, Mr. Samuel used to work nights. He always guarded the office overtime. But one night he never came home. He disappeared. The next day, the office checked the CCTV. He was last recorded at 3 a.m., walking down the stairs alone. But after that, all the recordings were error-prone. A few days later, his shoes were found in the second-floor hallway. But he was never found. And since that night, everyone who works overtime sometimes sees a security guard standing with his back to the hallway. But he never speaks. He just stands there. And every now and then, he disappears when you blink. Ever since I heard about Mr. Samuel, I've been thinking, could it be that this guy I've been seeing is him? But why? Is there a little kid there too? And why does each floor have its own guard? I found out from someone I hadn't asked before. The cafeteria lady. Mrs. Victoria has worked in this office since the building was renovated. It used to be a funeral home, that's obvious. But it turns out before that, it was an orphanage. But it was never official, she said quietly. Many children were said to live there, but they weren't registered anywhere. And when the place closed, not all the children were moved. During the renovation, the builders found small toys buried under the tiles, a broken doll, and baby shoes. A pair, but different colors. No one ever admitted who they were. I asked, why is this office still in use when there are so many incidents? Mrs. Victoria just smiled faintly, then said, sometimes we can't choose where we work, son. But this place, sometimes it's like choosing for yourself who can go. A few days later, a friend from my division went missing. His name was Ranga. He usually came home the latest because he was in charge of quality control. He didn't return that night. Early this morning, his motorcycle was still in the parking lot. His cell phone was off. And when we checked his room, his computer was still on. The last CCTV footage showed Ranga walking to the third-floor restroom. But the recording stopped midway. The file was corrupted. Just like Mr. Samuel's case. We all panicked. Office workers, security guards, and even the police came to check. But there were no traces. No signs of forced entry. No signs of violence. The only odd thing was, an attendance record was signed out in Ranga's name at 3:02 a.m. Even though the fingerprint door can only be used physically. And Ranga couldn't have left through the front door. Especially if his motorcycle was still there. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got a chat from an unknown number. The contents: I'm still here. Please don't leave me alone. I answered. Ranga didn't reply. But 5 minutes later, someone shared the location on my cell phone. The location: the third floor of my office. In the corner of a small room that had been locked for a long time. The room that used to be a corpse storage room when it was still a funeral home. The next day, I arrived with one intention: to open the room. The security guard refused, but a technician and I forced it open. When the door was opened, the room was empty. But the smell of wet earth and rusty metal immediately greeted us. On the back wall, there were fingernail marks, long, deep, and smeared with dried dark red paint. And in the corner, there was a small piece of paper, torn from a layout. It was handwritten. Please tell them, don't work overtime alone. After finding that scrap of paper in the back room on the 3rd floor, everything changed. I had decided to resign. I didn't care about overtime pay, work reputation, or letters of recommendation. I just wanted to live. But my last day at the office wasn't going to be an ordinary closing. I came in at noon. I don't want to come in the morning. I don't want to come home at night. I've cleaned everything. Just hand over the laptop and ID card to HR. At 2 p.m., I went up to the 2nd floor to say goodbye to some friends. But strangely, the office seemed quiet. There's no sound whatsoever. When I reached the hallway, all the rooms are empty. The computer is on, the bags are there, but there are no people. Shall I try going to floor 3? Empty. 1st floor. There's no one. And when I opened the exit door, all the windows outside were dark. Even though it was bright, midday. I started to panic. I went back to the living room on the 2nd floor, intending to grab my phone. But the clock on my phone screen was stuck at 3:02 a.m. And all the notifications were from the same number. You haven't said goodbye to everyone yet. I look around. Behind the printer table, there is a security guard. Stand with your back to me. Shut up. But this time, I don't want to run away. I approached slowly. I said quietly, Mr. Samuel, I'm going to take my leave. The figure didn't move. But from the side, a small child appeared, standing right next to him. His face was pale. His eyes were blank. And he simply said, You promised you wouldn't leave us. Suddenly, all the lights came on. The entire room returned to normal. The sound of people chatting in the meeting room. A notification chime from a friend's phone. And the security guard was gone. The little boy was gone. My phone's time returned to normal, 2:41 p.m. That afternoon, I left the building and never returned. But to this day, I sometimes get emails from my old office address. Blank emails. No subject. No content. Just one attachment. And when I opened it, it contained a blurry image of the 2nd floor hallway, with the shadow of a person standing in the middle. I don't know if it's Mr. Samuel. I don't know if it's me. Or maybe it's them who are still waiting for someone to work overtime alone.